Hey guys, I'm here with my friend Jamie Mason Cohen, who is a handwriting analyst. And I thought it'd be really cool to bring him in to analyze the handwriting of billionaires to see if we can describe any personality traits or learn anything from it. I know nothing about handwriting analysis, so I did want to introduce you to my friend Jamie, who's really cool. He's got a really cool background, including working at Saturday Night Live. So Jamie, why don't you tell us a little bit about Saturday Night Live?
Well, I was working on Canadian films and I wanted to work for Lorne Michaels, who is and still is one of the leading producers in Hollywood or the TV world. And so I called 24 times. On the 25th call, I finally got his assistant to respond, and she said, "What would it take for you to stop calling?"
Yeah.
And that led me to get a one-on-one meeting with Lorne Michaels. Several months later, finally got to see Lorne Michaels, and I asked him, "Can I work for you?" And 4 years later, I was working there.
And okay, so now let's talk about your transition to being, was it an
Graphotherapist.
Graphotherapist,
Yes.
That's right. So what is that?
I help people discover their strengths through handwriting. And I learned it from my mother. I stuttered as a kid, and I couldn't get through any type of presentation without tripping over the words. So my mother saw this, and she showed me handwriting analysis, and she said she saw things in me before I saw them in myself. And this weird, obscure personality assessment tool known as handwriting analysis became a means for me to better understand myself. So it works like this. The act of writing starts in your brain. It sends a signal down the nervous system to your hands that you write with, and your fingers carry out the directive of your brain. So your writing paints a picture of what you think. And the study and the psychology behind it, and there is studies that do back up components of handwriting, and one of them is it helps with hand-eye coordination. Another is it helps build this fluidity in connecting your brain to your words, ability to think faster on your feet. And on top of that, they're now showing, University of Washington did a study, that when you take notes by hand, you're much more likely to remember and absorb what you read or what you listen to in a lecture or someone speaks than if you write on your laptop or your phone. So handwriting has a lot of benefits that now are being backed up by modern psychology and studies.
So that's all cool. And what I'll say is that I had Jamie on my podcast. I know many people who watch my YouTube channel probably don't even know that I have a podcast. So I have one, and I recorded an episode with Jamie, and I'm going to post the link down below so you can take a listen to that as well to learn more about handwriting analysis and what you do. But I thought while he's here, we could do some fun things like analyzing the writing of, say, Warren Buffett. Or other famous maybe billionaires to see, what their handwriting says. Yeah. And then also we're going to analyze some handwriting traits that might help you identify a corporate thief, but just because you have some of these traits doesn't mean that you're a thief, or someone that you see their handwriting and they have these traits means that they're a thief. So, don't call HR just yet.
Exactly, yeah.
But, just make sure you label your food in the fridge because they might steal your food or something like that. Okay, so we're going to get started. We're going to set things up so Jamie can take a look at some signatures, and then we're going to analyze it.
Perfect. Okay, what can we learn about our finances and about being a successful leader by looking at Oprah Winfrey's handwriting? Well, this is her signature. Now, if you notice, you can read every single letter in her handwriting. This shows that she is upfront. What you see is what you get. And she has clear ethics. She shows up, and what you see is transparently who she is. Now, that's one of the reasons I believe people respond so well to her, because she's vulnerable, she's emotionally open, she exposes the true self. What you see on TV is what you get. Now, that large first O represents openness. She's openness to other ideas. Now, if you look at the loop in the back on the Y, that could represent that she's going back into the past because things have affected her deeply. She's investigating those because she has a little bit of a wedge at the top of the R. So that investigative loop, that little, that R, plus this, she investigates what happens in her past, but she comes back with strength and determination for future. Now, that's because that long line represents a determination, that long descending stroke. Okay, now we're going to do Warren Buffett. These are a few things that you may not know about him, even though he's one of the most public and well-known figures of our time when it comes to finance and business. So Warren Buffett has that you see that big initial loop? If you have that big initial loop, that shows the desire for responsibility. This is always being the one to step up. If you're at a conference, you're going to be the one who is going to say, I will volunteer to lead a group. I will be the one to get on stage and to put myself out there. It's the desire to lead. He has that in his writing. Do you have it in yours? Now, the next thing is, do you see that E? That is an E, and that's called the Greek E. It's based on the old Greek alphabet. Now, if you have a Greek E, it shows a certain level of erudition. Erudition is being well-read. It means having wisdom in the ways of the world. And if you know anything about Warren Buffett, you know that he loves to read. He says that he's spending a considerable amount of his time now reading. Bill Gates also spends a great deal of his time reading, learning about philosophy, and developing his mind. So this is something that reading is not out of style, because Warren Buffett still shows that he has that ability to discipline himself to read daily, to learn and grow. The next thing about Warren Buffett is, if you notice, his writing is slanted this way. It's slanted slightly to the right. Now, in many cases, it's actually really well slanted, and that shows something called a emotionally responsive signature. This shows that he's responding deeply emotionally. Sometimes he's feeling a sense of spontaneity or impulsiveness in his decisions. But yet that's counterintuitive, because this is the man who is all about long-term gain, long-term, playing the long game. So this shows that even if you have deep emotional responsiveness levels, how are you channeling it or sublimating that to work for you and not against you? Now we're going to look at some traits you may find in a corporate thief. If you have any of these traits, it doesn't mean that you're a thief by any means. We all have dark impulses. We 99% of the time don't act on them. But in some cases, it's good to be aware of why we're feeling a certain way. So the first trait is called the felon's claw. Now it looks almost like an eagle's claw. If you see that consistently, it may mean that person is feeling deceitful. And you could even go so far as feeling vengeful against someone else. Now, in a business context, that may be something you want to look a little bit closer to, because it's not personal. This person is just dealing with something that they haven't resolved, and they're feeling a sense of deceit or a sense of revenge. They want to seek revenge against someone. And it not necessarily physically violent, just out to get someone within the organization for some reason. The next is when there are double loops like this. So if you don't have it, it may be hard to do it, but there's going to be double loops. Now, the bigger those loops are within, one going to the right and one going to the left, that's a way of manipulation of others to the point of being dishonest in their intentions. Now, I've seen this with criminals, people who have been in jail for many years for fraud of different kinds. I've also seen this in people who are not demonstrating that at all, even people I know. And in some cases, this can be helpful in certain sales situation. And I'm not saying salespeople are manipulative, but there's times in our life when looking at something from different perspectives may be beneficial. So again, if you see this in yourself, it doesn't mean you're manipulative or that you're lying. It's just sometimes we have white lies in order to not hurt other people's feelings, in order to show people that we understand a different side, even if we don't fully buy into it. So the next trait looks like this. So it's similar to the felon's claw, but that is actually a D. So it doesn't actually make the loop at the bottom. Now this shape here can represent someone who has such a fear of being out of control that they're trying to, taking like a piece of metal and controlling everything so rigidly. And so that fear of being out of control actually leads them to want to control everything extensively. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be a corporate thief, but if it's consistent like that, it may mean that they will do anything in their power to control the outcome, even if it harms somebody else. And the last one is called the maniacal D. So it's a D that has a big loop and it's way to the right. So usually our D's are somewhere in there, maybe with a little bit of loop. But this case, it's a D and it goes way here with a big loop. This looks exaggerated, but if you see this, it's somebody who has sudden outbursts within them to lash out. So it's uncontrollable anger, and it may not show up at all with someone that you've even worked beside for a while. But if they get triggered, or that's maybe not the best word, something sets them off, that sensitivity, because a loop is sensitivity of themselves. If they feel attacked in any way, out of nowhere in a meeting, they could lash out, and then you could say, I've never seen that before, that's so out of character. But that person has the potential to lash out with outbursts. One more bonus is if you see writing, now this is harder unless you're an expert, but this is what I will look for sometimes. If you see writing that slants to the right extreme and then it slants to the left on an extreme way. So you see slants to the right and then slants to the left, so the writing is all over the place. Well, that shows a lack of emotional stability. Okay, because this is your emotional outlay, your emotional responsiveness level. So this is a person who goes way to one extreme, is an impulsive and makes decisions impulsively, emotionally, and then they retreat into their, like a turtle, into their shell, and they show nothing. They go deep within inside. It's great to go within, but they withdraw to the point of cutting people off. And it can happen like that. So, the felon's claw, the need for control, the double loop, the maniacal D, and the extreme slants on either sides are things you may want to look out for in others before you invest your time and your money in working with them as a partner or bringing them on your team. It's not the only thing I would look for. I would look at many other things in coordination, other personality assessment tools, other good 360s, people who have worked with them in the past. This is one piece of assessment that can be helpful to find something that maybe you didn't see or reaffirm what you already knew.
Okay, so that was really cool. I'm sure a question that you get asked a lot is, what about Donald Trump's signature? That like people have seen that everywhere when he signs all his, proclamations or whatever they're called. What can you tell us about Donald Trump's signature? Maniac?
In some ways, yeah. I mean, extremely rigid, right? It looks like a jagged chainsaw, right? It looks like a machete.
Fitting.
Right. So in some ways, it's lack of compassion. It is my way or the highway. What he has that you could either say is really admirable or completely sociopathic in some ways is his belief in himself is so clear and so overwhelmingly believing in his own ability to get things done that no matter what anybody says of him, he has charged forward almost like a freight train, knocking anybody over in his path,
right?
In business and in life. And so that has helped him get to where he is because along the way, he's never stopped to care enough about what any person thinks or said about him to let that hurt his forward-moving drive.
Right. Great. Jamie, thanks so much for coming on and talking us through your handwriting analysis.
Yeah.
Where can people find out more about you?
On my website, jamiemasoncohen.com. And on LinkedIn by the same name.
Excellent. That is it for this time. We'll see you next week. Next week. What am I talking about? In a couple months.